This meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Kramer,
Here.
Commissioner Lieberline,
Here.
Commissioner Fritzo,
Here.
Commissioner Rawson,
Here.
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins,
Here.
Commissioner
Here.
Planner, City Planner Jim Rundle.
Here.
We have a forum.
Thank you. Commissioner Sperber, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Drop that. Yes, sir.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next item. I will open us for public comment. Public comment provides the planning commission must allow multiple periods devoted to public comment by the general public. Matters arise during public comment that are not on the agenda may be the subject of deliberation or action. Written comments from the public prior to the agenda and supporting materials for the following meeting. Do I have anybody here wishing to make public comment at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I will close public comment at this time. Item number 5, approval of the agenda. May I get a motion, please?
I motion to approve it.
I have Commissioner Rawson
I'll second.
and Commissioner Nieberline. Seconding. Commissioner Rawson, can I get you to read it, please?
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you. Please cast your votes. Thank you. We have a unanimous approval. Next on the agenda, yes, sir.
We haven't got a vote from Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins.
That's what I was just.
Oh, may I have a voice vote from you, please?
Aye.
There you go.
Oh, it
There you go.
wasn't-
Now you got it.
Oh, okay,
There we go.
thank you. I was like, where is it?
Now we are unanimous. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission study session held on Tuesday, April 18th, 2023, and the Planning Commission meeting held on Thursday, April 20th, 2023. Can I get a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve.
Can I get a second? I have a motion by Commissioner Reed and a second by Commissioner Pritzots.
Do you need me to?
Yes, please.
I move to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission study session held on Wednesday or Tuesday, April 18th, 2023, and Planning Commission meeting held on Thursday, April 20th, 2023.
Can I?
Second.
There we go. Can I get everybody to cast their votes?
Is it, mine is not coming up with the votes.
Here comes Casey. Casey will help you.
Sorry.
Okay. Can I get a voice vote? Voice vote?
Oh, vote sweet.
Rodriguez Elkins, aye.
Thank you. I have 7 ayes, and Commissioner Sperber has abstained. The motion passes. Thank you. We are on to item 7. Public hearing. Item 7.1, PCN 22-0009/CU 22-0002, consideration, discussion, and possible action on a request for a conditional use permit to permit a storage/processing of hazardous materials and provide for the construction of a butane blending system consisting of two 65,000-gallon butane tanks and related equipment to process and inject butane into gasoline on an approximately 32.88 acre site located at 175 Nugget Avenue, Sparks, Nevada, APN 032-220-62 in the I Industrial Zoning District. For possible action. Sienna?
Thank you, Chair Kramer, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Sienna Reed, Planning Manager. As just read before you tonight is a request for a conditional use permit, or CUP, to allow the storage and processing of hazardous materials with the construction of a butane blending system. As proposed, the butane blending system would inject butane into gasoline at an existing fuel distribution facility located at 175 Nugget Avenue, which you can see outlined in red on this slide. The subject site, which is located south of Interstate 80, has been used as a fuel distribution facility since the 1960s. On this slide, you can see the proposed location of the butane blending system highlighted in red. It consists of two 65,000-gallon butane tanks, a butane truck offload station, a truck driver weather shelter, two equipment houses, connective piping, and two injection skids. And just to orient you to those features, here is the location of the truck offload station. Here's the location of the butane tanks. In this location, you can see some of the connective piping, and then here you see some injection points. Primary access to the project site is provided from one point on Nugget Avenue and two on Stanford Way. Internal access roads, which you can see in orange on this slide, provide access and circulation through the site. And just to give you a bit of background on the properties of butane. Butane is stored and processed as a liquefied gas because its vapor pressure is higher than ambient pressure. If butane is released into the atmosphere, its pressure equalizes with the ambient pressure, and you end up with a phase change from liquid to gas occurring. And in its gaseous form, butane is flammable or explosive in the presence of air or an ignition source. Submitted with this CUP request was a fire safety analysis, identifying hazards and documenting how project design safety features meet the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, safety standards, the National Propane Gas Association, or NPGA, guidance document, and the NFPA Fire Safety Analysis Manual for LP gas storage facilities. Some of these safety features include continuous monitoring and control by a programmable logic that notifies local and remote operators with visual and audible alarms, and automatically shuts down the systems if sensors do detect a hazardous situation. In addition, an interlocking emergency shutdown system with shutdown push buttons at multiple locations, as well as atmospheric hydrocarbon detectors located in areas where butane tanks could occur, both of which would automatically trigger an alert or an emergency shutdown. Also, an interlock system that ensures proper grounding is in place between the delivery truck trailer and the offload station prior to any butane offloading occurring. Interlocks that prevent the butane tanks from being overfilled or overpressurized. Manual shut-off and isolation valves on all of the butane lines, as well as system-wide pressure and thermal relief valves that prevent overall pressure buildup. At the request of the fire department, this fire safety analysis was reviewed by a third-party technical expert who found the proposed butane blending system and operation to be compliant with NFPA as well as NPGA safety standards. However, the third-party reviewer did recommend some additional site improvements to protect the butane blending system and remediate existing site deficiencies to ensure adequate access and safety measures are in place. These additional site improvements are shown on this slide and are required by condition of approval number 8 to be addressed prior to the operation of the butane blending system. They include fully accessible fire hydrants, the installation of auto-rotating monitor nozzles directed towards the butane tanks. Monitor nozzles provide for the delivery of large water flows. Also, new fire hydrants to be installed near the butane tanks and the driver offloading station. Undergrounding new proposed piping that would otherwise cross roads and gates. Various roadway improvements, including paving certain unpaved access roads and fixing potholes and grading for other access roads. Ensuring foam chambers are provided for any existing storage tank that has Class 1 flammable liquids. Ensuring fire department signage and building identification is clearly visible throughout the site. Relocating an existing overhead fuel supply line to ensure that ladder truck operations aren't impaired. Ensuring access keys, Knox boxes, or other means of access for the fire department are provided for all gates and buildings. And appropriately marking and closing abandoned pipes and conduits in proximity to the butane tanks. In addition, the project is required to install additional landscaping. Required landscaping for sites in the industrial zoning district is limited to a 10-foot wide landscape strip along street frontages with street trees. As this site was developed without landscaping, it is considered substandard development that must provide 65% of the required landscaping standard if it's intensified, which is being proposed. The applicant is doing so by adding landscaping along a portion of Nugget Avenue within the NDOT, or Nevada Department of Transportation, right-of-way, and then also along Stanford Way. All right, so to shift gears with this slide to our conditional use permit findings that need to be considered this evening. Here we'll start off with finding C1, which is compliance with the city's comprehensive plan. Here the proposed butane blending system advances goals MG1 and policy MG2 by supporting the city's existing non-residential land use base and facilitating investment in an existing fuels distribution facility located south of Interstate 80. As the butane system would operate within a developed site where city services are already being provided at acceptable service levels, policy CF1 is also supported, and notably the project site is located within the Sparks Fire Department 4-minute travel time standard. Finding C2 that you can see on this slide focuses on compatibility with adjacent properties. Information provided by the applicant indicates that a worst-case scenario where butane is released into the atmosphere is expected to impact an area 70 feet away from the butane release, 78 feet, away from the butane release. Properties to the north of the subject site are developed with a mix of commercial and residential uses, but they're located on the north side of I-80 and Victorian Avenue, which is approximately 290 feet away from the project site. Properties to the south are developed with a variety of industrial uses and are located on the south side of the Union Pacific Railroad and associated right-of-way. That's between 320 and 710 feet away from the project site. Properties to the east are developed with a hotel, medical marijuana cultivation, and warehousing and distribution uses on the east side of Stanford Way. As designed, the proposed butane blending system is located over 700 feet away from the hotel, over 300 feet away from the distribution warehouse, and over 200 feet away from the medical marijuana cultivation facility. Properties to the west are developed with warehouse and fuel distribution uses. And here, the nearest portion of the butane blending system is located over 450 feet away from the closest building and fuel storage tank located on those properties. So acknowledging that the adjacent uses are located out of the 78-foot impact area for a butane release, staff believes the addition of the butane blending system at this location is compatible with the adjacent uses. Moving on to finding C3, which relates to natural resource impairment. Natural resources that generally support population include air and water resources. As a gas, butane cannot impact water resources. And butane also has a low toxicity for human inhalation and is not anticipated to adversely impact air resources. Finding C4 focuses on how identified impacts of the project have been addressed. Here, staff identified fire safety, outdoor storage, and landscaping. As previously discussed, to address fire safety, Condition 8 requires the construction of those numerous site improvements prior to operation of the butane blending system. Those will protect the butane blending system as well as remediate existing site deficiencies and ensure safe access through the site. Condition 9 also prohibits outdoor storage of combustibles waste on the project site. And then conditions 4 and 5 related to landscaping, with condition 4 requiring installation of landscaping consistent with the preliminary plans just shown earlier in this presentation, and condition 5 requiring an encroachment occupancy permit from NDOT for the portion of landscaping in their right-of-way. Finding C5 requires public notice be given in compliance with code and state law. And it is noteworthy that conditional use permits for hazardous materials have an enhanced noticing procedure in terms of the number of individuals that must receive notice within a 1,000-foot area, and then also just a larger number of other individuals. So on April 10th, notice was published in the Reno Gazette-Journal and mailed to property owners, tenants, as well as mobile home park tenants within 1,000 feet of the subject site. Notices were also mailed to the Sparks Citizens Advisory Board, the administrator of the Division of Environmental Protection of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the State Fire Marshal, and the administrator of the Division of Industrial Relations of the Department of Business and Industry. To date, staff has received 2 phone calls on this item. One was from an individual that was seeking additional information regarding the request, and another from an individual that did state their opposition. And since Monday's study session on this item, 1 written comment in opposition has also been received. That written comment has been posted to the agenda meeting packet that you have. Moving on, in addition to our regular 5 CUP findings that were just discussed, the Planning Commission must also consider 2 findings set forth in Nevada Revised Statute. The first is the health and safety of the residents of the city. As designed, the butane blending system complies with all laws and standards governing the storage and processing of butane, as well as the conditions of approval that address the recommendations of the third-party technical expert. The second is the safety and security of military installations. Here, the nearest military installation is located over 2 miles away from the subject site, so adverse impacts are not anticipated. The Planning Commission is the recommending body to the City Council on conditional use permits for hazardous materials. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this CUP request with 9 conditions, and you have a motion to that effect on this slide. So with that, I'll wrap up this presentation and be available for any questions that you may have. We also have Don Parsons with the Sparks Fire Department with us to answer any questions that you might have of him.
Thank you, Sienna. Do we have questions for Sienna? Don?
Don Parsons, Sparks Fire Department, for the record.
Hi, Ricky Rodriguez-Elkins. I was wondering, they had indicated during the workshop that they would provide training opportunities, and wanted to make sure that you felt, that the department felt that they were sufficient opportunity for additional training should that be needed, and if so, who covers the cost of the extra training?
As far as training goes, I do not foresee additional training on how to use the equipment or how to protect this facility.
Okay.
It would be more of a familiarization for our guys to be able to walk through and know where these tanks are being located, where the monitors are located, where the fire department connections and foam are kept for it. So really, it's more of a familiarization that they'll need to do. It's very minimal. As far as that, the city would be just part of their normal duties.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it.
More questions? Is the applicant here?
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Olson, Senior Engineer. I represent the applicant for the butane blending project, Energy Transfer, General Partner of a subsidiary, Sunoco Partners Marketing and Terminals. I'm here tonight with a number of my colleagues from Energy Transfer and our partners, Kinder Morgan, the owner of the Sparks Fuel Distribution Terminal, to answer any questions. Again, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Sienna Reed, the planning staff, and everyone from the fire department who put a lot of work into investigating this system, making sure they understand it thoroughly and are well protected from any adverse consequences. We realize this type of use permit application doesn't come up very often, so thank you again for your interest and ability to look into this technical nature of the application. We think this system is well proven. We operate over 100 of these butane blending systems across 25 states in the U.S., have been doing so for over a decade. It's a thoroughly vetted system. It incorporates a number of improvements to the facility, which Sienna covered just a minute ago, all from a safety, aesthetic, and code conformity standpoint. So we're respectfully requesting approval of the Planning Commission for the butane blending conditional use permit. Thank you again, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Have questions for the applicant? Okay, I do. What is butane blending? I am totally,
So it's a process where we mix butane in with gasoline. Gasoline is made up of a mixture of fuels. One of those fuels is already butane, so it contains butane already. It's actually one of the cleanest burning parts of gasoline. So this adds a bit more, which is already being done at the refineries, but this process just further optimizes the blend of the gasoline. It slightly changes the octane. It serves to make it a cleaner burning gasoline,
good to know.
among a number of other small changes.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, now I'm more informed. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay, since this is a public hearing, do I have anybody wishing to speak on this particular item? Thank you, sir. Okay, seeing none. All right, I will bring it back to the board. Discussion?
No, Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion
Okay.
if it comes up, or I can just, there we go.
There you go. All right. I will entertain a motion then. Well, there you go. Go ahead.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the conditional use permit CU 22-0002 associated with PCN 22-0009 based on findings C1 through C5, the findings set forth in NRS 278.174 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 9 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report.
I have a motion by Commissioner Reed and a second by Commissioner Rawson.
Do you need me to voice that?
Sure,
I second that motion.
there you go. Okay. Waiting. And I will ask each of you to cast your vote.
Aye. I have to do mine voice.
Got it. Oh, there you go. All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Sienna, we appreciate it.
You always get the easy projects, yeah.
Right. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna ask, is it appropriate for me to say we're gonna combine the next 2 items?
Sure.
Okay, since Jonathan is here, we are going to combine the next 2 items, but we are going to move on them separately. as required. 7.2 and 7.3, since Jonathan can do it all together. 7.2 is PCN 21-0037/RZ23-0001, consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation to City Council on a request to rezone from PF Public Facilities and AG5 Agricultural to C2 General Commercial for a 4.17 acre site located at 2770 Spanish Springs Road, APN 516-28103, and 1470 Disc Drive, APN 514-081-01, Sparks, Nevada, for possible action, and 7.3 PCN 21-0037/CU 23-0003, consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation to City Council on a request for a conditional use permit to construct and operate a 480-unit mini warehouse storage facility on a 4.17 acre site located at 2770 Spanish Springs Road, APN 516-28103, and 1470 Disc Drive, APN 514-08101, Spanish Springs, Nevada, in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District for possible action. Go ahead, Jonathan. All right.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Jonathan Cummins from the city's Planning Division. Since you've already taken it upon yourself to combine these two items for presentation's sake this evening, just a little bit more on the procedure for the record. So this is a two-part request, as you said, one of those requests to rezone the subject site and another request for a conditional use permit to establish and construct a mini warehouse facility on that subject site. As we explained in the staff reports, these requests are being processed concurrently, and so they'll be decided concurrently as well. And so what that means is while the Planning Commission would normally, as in your previous case this evening, would normally make a decision on a conditional use permit, because this will be running concurrently with the request for the rezoning, the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council on both items. So with all those mechanics on the record, this is our vicinity map of the subject site. And so just to give a little bit of context, obviously the two parcels in question with this request are outlined in red. And so what we have along here is Disc Drive, and right here on the corner of Vista and Disc is Fire Station 4, a pretty notable landmark if you're driving on Vista Boulevard regularly or on Disc. And so this is a 4.8 acre site in total, made up of, again, two parcels. The southernmost parcel was recently purchased from the city. It had previously been associated with the fire station site, and the property to the north was a privately owned residential property with, again, the A5 zoning, as you pointed out, Madam Chair. Both parcels have the comprehensive plan land use designation of commercial, and as of today, both properties are owned by the applicant. So as you'll see, if you'll bear with me with the zoning maps here, the one on the left is the existing zoning, which will show you the site here outlined in red again, and then the proposed zoning will be on the map on the right. And so as we have already kind of pointed out here, the property to the north is zoned A5, that's an agricultural zoning, and the property on the south is zoned PF, public facility. Again, that was associated with a city parcel which contains Fire Station 4. This proposal is to bring both sites into conformance with the underlying comprehensive plan land use designation, which is commercial. So it's staff's opinion that the proposed zone change to C2 would be consistent and compatible with not only adjacent zonings. As you can see, there's some adjacent C2 zoning right here, as well as a bunch more here to the north along Vista, as well as a good amount across Vista to the west. And so we'll cover the findings that will kind of go into that compatibility a bit more in a moment. First, the required findings for the rezoning we'll get on the record. So number one, asks you to consider consistency with the comprehensive plan and the regional plan, as well as any applicable laws, including state or federal. As I mentioned, because the comp plan designation for this site is commercial, this rezoning proposal would bring both of these sites into conformance with the comprehensive plan. Additionally, the intent of commercial land use designation in the Sparks Comprehensive Plan is for commercial properties to contain commercial projects. So with that assumption being adopted by this Planning Commission and certified by the City Council in the current Sparks Comprehensive Plan that will lead us into our sort of next findings, which is number 2, asking you to consider consistency with surrounding land uses. The proximity of commercial properties to residential properties provides for the mix of uses that the comp plan does call for as well, and the goals that we will cite in the conditional use permit findings. And these properties have been zoned, again, adjacent to the subject site, properties that have been zoned C2, adjacent to SF6. Residential properties have been established and operating for a long period of time, and staff is not aware of any significant issues with that compatibility. Third required finding for the rezone is that public notice be distributed, public hearing held on May 1st. All property owners within 750 feet were notified via mail of this request, and that notice was also published in the Reno Gazette Journal. So with that, we'll move right into the CUP, the conditional use permit request as well. So this is a rendering of the subject site with the mini warehouse facility laid over the parcels, if you will. So along the southern property here is the disk drive entrance. And as you enter onto the site, you'll see that there's the manager's quarters here, parking adjacent to that part of the project. And then throughout the site, we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, the parking that will be accomplished by customers parking near their storage units, for instance, leaving a good amount of circulation for additional traffic to move around the site should they need to, and then a gated emergency access point for exiting off of Grace Court to the north of the project. So the proposed facility would consist of 480 storage units, as well as, again, a caretaker's residence, which also contains an office, which is used for customers to obtain a new lease, pay a bill, things like that. And then, again, some additional storage on that property, or that part of the property as well. And again, the residence for a manager who would live on site. The applicant provided a trip generation letter with this request that shows approximately 11 peak hour trips onto and off of the site, well below the 80 required of a full traffic study. So that was not required with this project. The preliminary landscape plan additionally will show that there's about 18% of the property being landscaped. The requirement in the C2 zoning would be 15%, so they've met that requirement. Additionally, as I'll get to and maybe even touch again on later in the presentation, is that staff is asking for additional landscaping along the sides of the property that are adjacent to residential properties. So over here, we want additional trees there. We've written that into the conditions of approval, as well as some additional tree buffering along Disk Drive just to prevent to provide an additional buffer for the visual impact that this project will have on that established area. Additionally, to the added landscaping requirement in the conditions of approval, staff is requiring that there be a photometric plan proposed with the building permit applications, which will come later. And that photometric plan will show that there should be no light spilling off of the project onto the neighboring properties. For instance, when it's dark outside and the project manager wants to light up the facility for their customers, that light needs to sort of be diminished at the property lines in order for residences adjacent to the project site not to be disturbed. So a quick run through the renderings that we have here. These are the elevations that the applicant has provided for the manager's quarters. Here's the sort of 4 sides of the building showing the various forms of articulation, use of colors and materials in order to meet the code, and then the storage facilities themselves conforming to the general color scheme that they provided in the office. And then to a question from Monday's study session, if you can see in this rendering that there is somewhat of a decorative element incorporated into the wall behind these storage units. And so with the question from Monday, I would point out that when we see building permits that would include that wall as part of the project, we'd be looking for it to conform with what's been proposed here in these renderings. So somewhat decorative to the extent that a masonry wall can be decorative. It's not the worst thing in the world to look at. So we'll be looking for that in the building permits. So the findings required for the conditional use permit include the following. 1, for consideration of your compliance with the comprehensive plan. As I stated in the rezoning findings, the project, this particular land use, is permitted in the proposed zoning district, and so would support the goals MG1 and MG2 of the comprehensive plan. And those are to support economic vitality and to provide a land use mix that includes residential as well as commercial projects throughout the city. Finding number 2 asks you to consider compatibility with existing and permitted uses of adjacent properties. I also mentioned that a moment ago, that the existing facility is very similar to one adjacent to it. So the compatibility issue that the existing facility in nearby residential neighborhoods, staff believes that the compatibility that's been proven there over time would continue on with this intensification of this site for additional use for that particular business. Finding number 3 asks you to consider impairment of natural resources. Staff has found that the proposed project would not have an impact on natural resources. Finding number 4 asks you to consider any other identified impacts. And so I've been over those already, but I'll state them again here, that those were landscaping, architecture, lighting, and parking. Each of those concerns have been addressed in the application, as well as in revised materials that the applicant has provided to staff as we identified those impacts over the course of our review. And finding number 5 asks again for notice be distributed to the public and a public hearing held. Same as with the rezone, mailed notices were distributed May 1st to all property owners within 750 feet. Reno Gazette Journal published on that day as well. Staff has received 3 emailed comments from the public expressing various concerns with the project, to include compatibility, the layout of the site, to include ingress and egress and traffic. And so with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward recommendations of approval on both of these items. As a reminder, the Planning Commission will need to open public comments for each item independently, followed by separate motions for each item. And with that, the applicant is here this evening as well, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Chair Kramer, if I may.
Yes, Brandon?
Jonathan, just for the record, and the 3 written public comments that we received, that's part of the packet?
Those have been provided to the commissioners, yes, and they are online.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Pritzos?
Yeah, Jonathan, in terms of on the site plan that you had, is there only the entrance on disc, or is that entrance that looks up on the north, is that just for emergency, or is that also general?
That's correct, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The entrance on Disc Drive is the main entrance and exit for vehicles. The Grace Court is a gated emergency access, which would be for exiting potentially, or for fire department to access the site from the north.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, questions? Let's start with 7.2. Start on that one. Questions on the rezone? Is the applicant here? Do you want to come on up? You just hang out while we go through both of them. I'll just save everybody time and trips and whatnot.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Joshua Mann with Mid-Valley Engineering. We're the engineering firm that's helping the owner applicant, Brian Murphy, with this project. Brian's also here tonight if you have any specific questions for him.
Thank you.
But I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions for the applicant regarding the rezoning?
Madam Chair, rezoning, no.
Okay. All right. No questions on the rezoning. Okay. No questions on rezoning. We're going to open public comment on the rezoning on 7.2. Do we have anybody here that, yes, sir, Mr. Rundles?
Chair, this item actually would be 7.1.
7.1,
Yeah.
never mind, 7.7. No,
Excuse me,
7.2.
7.2, which is the conditional use permit, right?
No, it's
Okay, I've got
rezone.
it backwards. I
Thank you.
apologize.
No worries. Okay, so is there anybody here that is requesting public comment on 7.2 on the rezoning? Okay, so no one here requesting public comment on rezoning. I'm going to close public comment on 7.2. Okay. We're now moving to 7.3, which is the conditional use permit. Okay, am I good?
If,
Do I need to do something
with the
different?
public hearing, I think each need to be its own public
Okay,
hearing.
so-
So after we close public comment on 7.2,
Okay,
I'd recommend a vote on that.
Okay,
and then
so
we can move to
let us
7.3.
go to, can I get a motion on 7.2, please? Let's go back. gonna do it right. Let's do it right. Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Rawson and a second by Commissioner Pritzos. Commissioner Rawson.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of RZ 23-001, a request to rezone the 4.18 acre site located at 2770 Spanish Springs Road and 1470 Disc Drive from A5 Agriculture and PF Public Facility to C2 General Commercial, based on findings Z1 through Z3 and the facts supporting these findings as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Noted. And can I get a?
Rodriguez Elkins, aye.
Got it. Cast your votes. And it is unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving on to 7.3. Okay. Do we have questions for staff on 7.3, conditional use permit? Commissioner Nieberline, did you have questions for Jonathan?
Not
On-
Jonathan, for the applicant.
Joshua? Come on back. Ooh. Commissioner Nieberline. Sorry.
One question that I have for you, sir, is one of the members of the public who has expressed some concern about this project is complaining about alarms from a storage facility. I'm assuming it's the existing adjacent one. Will there be any audible alarms at your facility?
I'm not sure. Let me check with Brian. Not sure we've gotten to that level of detail yet, to be honest. Brian, do you have?
Well, all I can say with that.
Sir, can you come? Come up. It's all right, you can both be here. We have microphones for both of you.
Go over there. Hello, my name is Brian Murphy, the applicant. So I don't know if I'll be much help on this, but they will be alarmed. And I suppose if there's a problem with alarms going off, we'd have to address it. But the only reason why an alarm should go off is if they were, broken into or accessed, wrongfully accessed. So it sounds like the other mini storage has a problem with their alarm system, but obviously.
Or if there was a fire.
Or
And-
what?
Or if there was a fire, and the fire station's right next door.
Yeah, maybe, so. All I can say with that is we do our best not to have alarms going off, and there shouldn't be alarms going off, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I do.
Yes, sir?
What are the hours of operation for this facility?
Well, we haven't gotten that far with the city of Sparks, so we were just gonna get this, get this approved, and then we would go in and do that at a later time. But if we could get a 24-hour, where the people could access, we will. I think it'd be convenient for people to go in, but I'm not sure what the neighboring mini storage has right now.
Jonathan, I do have a question to follow up with Commissioner Rawson's question. Is there a code that says 24 hours access to storage facilities? Because ones I know of don't have 24-hour access, and this is a neighborhood.
Yeah, Madam Chair, to that question, there's no restriction on
Okay.
the hours of operation for a mini storage facility, nor in general businesses that are operating in the C2 zoning district.
Okay.
There are certain uses that do have, restricted hours of operation, and mini storage facility is not one of them.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Sure. I would like to provide some context to
Yes, please.
staff's answer.
Yes, please.
This is a conditional use permit.
Okay.
One of the findings requires the planning commission to consider how the project's mitigated to integrate into the neighborhood. And while there are no operation hours associated with the mini warehouse facility, it is a conditional use permit. if the commission so chose to add a condition on operation hours, this would be the opportunity to do that.
Discussion? Oh, wait, we're not done. Okay, that's a good point. Thank you, Mr. Rundle. All right, any other questions for the applicant? Any other questions for staff? Well, I will open it for public comment. Do we have anybody here wishing to make public comment on the conditional use permit for this particular item? Okay. Sir, do we have a card? Go ahead. Well, come on up and address it to, can we do this, Mr. Sendall?
Yeah.
Yes?
If the public wants to
You have,
speak,
you
this
have
is
an
the time.
opportunity to speak. This is your time to speak, sir.
I don't like the 24-hour, because I have only 2 houses down, and I could just hear the...
Let me back you up, sir. Can you state your name, please, for the record?
Edward Nettle.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nettle.
Okay. I live 2 houses down, my wife and I, and I think if it was open 24 hours, that we would be at that close, we would hear the storage bins being opened and closed and people coming. If it's all 24 hours, it could be 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And I think that would be a problem. And also the lighting. I don't know if it can be dimmed at night or is it going to be blaring all 24 hours, the lighting? Because we have a jacuzzi out in the back room or in the backyard and you can barely see the stars now, at night because of the lighting of the city anyway. And it seems like it's going to be pretty bright there, it being 2 houses down. I think that's a concern. And the traffic, where are people going to park? Are they going to be parking on Walden or on Disk? I was just wondering if they didn't address that. It would be nice to know what they have as a plan where people, where they're going to park. I think that's about it.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thank you, sir.
Okay,
Can you fill out a card?
there's one here.
Oh,
Is that one?
yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Anybody else wishing to make public comment? All right. Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I think there's one.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, a comment.
Come on down. Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, it's Maricela Escobar for the record, and I live on Grace, just right the next door. So my concern would be, we live on that cul-de-sac, that emergency entrance or exits. We usually park a vehicle there. So now being an emergency exit, we'll no longer we'll lose that access now. And I feel just like, because we live on that last house, we're gonna be surrounded by storage units. So that is a huge concern. And then we get all the alarms, we hear all the alarms from the storage units in the front. Now we're gonna hear them also adjacent to us on the side. So that is like, we face the storage units in front, now we're gonna face them. At least when we would look to the left of our home, we would see the street, but now all we're gonna see is storage units. So that's my concern. And then, like I said, we're gonna lose like our cul-de-sac parking that we would use. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. All right, I'm gonna close public comment. Nobody else? Bring it back to the board. Discussion.
I have a question.
Go for it.
And I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I would like to know what the hours of the adjacent storage facility are, if anybody knows that.
Chair, I don't know. Planner Cummins may, but
Madam Chair, if I may, Commissioner Reed, we don't have that information about the neighboring business. We don't have their hours of operation nor the commercial center that it's connected to either. These are properties that are zoned C2, so there is a pretty significant variety of commercial operations going on within those couple of larger sites. And so as far as hours of operation for any of them, we don't have that information.
So just off the top of my head, knowing that I live in the neighborhood and have frequented that storage unit seeking their business, I know that they do not operate after 9 o'clock at night. Knowing that this is a conditional use permit and we can put conditions on this, my thoughts are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. for hours of operation for that particular site. I know that the one down at the bottom of the hill on Los Altos runs from, I believe it's 6 to 9 as well. And they're closed, or what is it? 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.? Okay, well, more reasonable people hours than not people coming in at, 1 o'clock in the morning wanting to get their RV or their boat or whatever. And I'm not aware if they're going to do boat and RV storage, or just trying to get their stuff out of storage. It's kind of a ridiculous time. And that is a quiet neighborhood. I know that. I drive that street. And I think that it would be respectful to those that live in the neighborhood to not have that type of traffic in their neighborhood. And I think that if the alarms are something that are going off in the middle of the night, I think that's something that would need to be addressed with the owner or the caretaker of the property. That's something, but having it not being built and not knowing, that's not our call. That is not our call. Our call is to be able to set the hours and say, yes, a conditional use permit is permitted, but these are the hours of operation that you can operate under, because people live in this neighborhood and they sleep and they're not up 24 hours a day. And cars shouldn't be coming in 24 hours a day, because those businesses down there are not operating 24 hours a day. The only thing that operates 24 hours a day is that fire station.
Right.
Even the market on the corner of Disk and Vista does not operate at 24 hours a day. It closes at 11 o'clock. So, I mean, my recommendation with this would be to put the hours of operation from 7 to 9, and I think 7 is a reasonable time. I mean, up to you guys, but I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I wanted to know what the hours were of the adjacent property, because I don't think you can have one storage facility operating in a reduced hours and then the one next door can be 24
I don't
hours.
believe the other one is 24 hours.
Yeah.
I truly do not.
Yeah.
I
And well,
truly
that's
do
what,
not. And I think before we,
Yeah.
I think that, that
I
is.
think they should have the same hours.
Chair, we're not able to answer that question. Potentially, if you wanted to provide a 15-minute recess, we could research.
Can we recess for 15?
Can I ask another question?
I want to.
Certainly.
Chair, while the.
Can we provide a 10-minute recess, and we'll get back to your question after recess, and 10 minutes? Does that give us enough time? Just to look it up?
So 10 minutes will go quickly.
Or 15?
Yes, please.
Okay, 15, we'll recess for 15 minutes and find out what the other storage unit does. All right? We'll recess. Be back in 15.
Yeah, well, I was thinking. Got it.
Started at 6?
You know, and it'd be worth it.
You're triggering my trauma, my PTSD.
Yeah, we started our last.
All right. We are coming back at, I don't even know what time it is. 7:07. No, it's not. It's 7:11.
7:09.
7:09. Oh, it says 7:11.
Oh, they're fast.
Whatever. Okay. So what did we find out, Mr. Rundles?
Thank you, Chair Kramer. Planner Cummins will speak to what research we found
Okay.
respective to the entitlement that permitted the mini warehouse facility in proximity to the one we're speaking about tonight.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Jonathan.
to your question about the neighboring mini warehouse facility, that project was approved by a special use permit in 1997. One of the conditions of approval for that project was that it be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the information. All right. Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins. Elkins Rodriguez, which way?
Rodriguez Elkins.
Okay, good.
Elkins is fine.
All right.
Just one is legal and the other one is,
Commissioner Ricky.
thank
How
you.
about that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Sir, my recollection was that that the parking is all within the unit, within the project, and not along the street, which I believe is one of the concerns of one of the gentlemen.
That's correct. Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
To that question and to the gentleman's question from earlier, parking is accomplished fully on the site. There are 4 parking spaces for the 1,000 square foot office facility that will be operating on a regular basis. The additional parking for users of the storage units, as you see in this rendering, there are vehicles throughout the site here. And these drive aisles are wide enough so that if a moving truck were to park adjacent to a storage unit to load or unload somebody's belongings, there would still be adequate room for additional circulation around that vehicle. So the majority of parking is accomplished on the site by parking adjacent to the units themselves.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, all right. Do we have all our concerns? Commissioner Reed?
So if we want to add another condition of approval, is that a separate motion?
No, I think
Or we-
with the motion, you could, make the recommended motion with the addition of an hours of operation condition.
All right, all right. Are we ready to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right,
But let me, okay,
ready?
yeah.
Go ahead.
I
Commissioner
move
Reed.
to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of Conditional Use Permit CU 23-0003 based on findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 7 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report, with the addition of another condition of approval to limit the operating hours to 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Do we need to have the number of days per week on that?
Okay, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
Can I get a sec? Do I have a second?
Aye.
Motion by Commissioner Reed and a second by Commissioner Rawson.
I second.
Right. Okay.
And then any discussion?
Any further discussion on this?
I just for the record, I think that the storage units is very compatible to the adjacent property. I think we need storage facilities, and that's one of the reasons I support this project. So, better than the pig farm, right?
Any other comments? I agree with Commissioner Reed. I do agree that there is a need for storage units. Unfortunately, for this area, there's a need for storage units. It's unfortunate that we need so many storage units, and I believe that it is compatible. I do believe that we need to be good neighbors in this area because it is a neighborhood, and I believe that we need to be cognizant of who our neighbors are. And be good stewards of our neighborhood. So I will also support this. Cast your vote, folks.
Chair,
Yes,
can we wait to cast the vote? I would like Julene to update it to say subject to the 8 conditions of approval.
absolutely.
Thank you.
There we go. So Commissioner Reed, will you reread your motion? Just so that we can have it on the
Okay.
record.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of Conditional Use Permit CU 23-0003 based on findings C1 through C5 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the 8 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report, adding a condition to limit the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
Thank you. All right. And Commissioner Rawson?
I second that
Thank
motion.
you. All right, cast your vote.
Aye. Rodriguez Elkins.
All right. That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate it. And thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on to general business. Item 8.1, consideration, discussion, and possible election of a Sparks Planning Commission Vice Chair for 2023 from the following pool of applicants in alphabetical order: Carl Nieberline, Evan Pritzos, Mike Rawson, Shelley Reed, Ricky Rodriguez Elkins, and Steven Sperber for possible action.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Commissioner
Are we ready?
Reed.
I move to elect Commissioner Rawson as the Planning Commission Vice Chair for the calendar year 2023.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Reed and a second by Commissioner Nieberline. All in, well, or maybe we're not gonna do this.
Current item.
I did. Maybe not. Okay. All right. Let's, well, maybe. We're gonna move to approve. Yes,
It's not coming.
There we
up.
go.
Oh, there we go.
there we go.
I'll move. All right, I got it.
And there we go.
And I'll second that.
You got it? Okay, there we go. Oh, you just removed it. Okay, there we go again.
All right.
Okay, let's try it again. And cast your vote. There we go.
Rodriguez Elkins, aye.
All right. Congratulations, Commissioner Rawson. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the club, or whatever.
Or whatever.
Yay.
Yay. Yeah.
8.2. Consideration, discussion, and possible recommendation to the mayor of a planning commissioner to serve a 3-year term on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission following confirmation by the city council for the term effective immediately and ending June 30th, 2026 from the following pool of applicants listed in alphabetical order: Carl Nieberline, Evan Pritzos, Mike Rawson, Ricky Rodriguez Elkins, Steven Sperber. This vacancy is to replace Commissioner West's vacant seat. For possible action, can I get a recommendation?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I
Reed.
move to recommend Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins to serve on the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission effective immediately and ending June 30th, 2026.
Can I get a second?
I second it.
And okay.
All right, let me go back. All right.
Motion by Commissioner Reed, seconded by Commissioner Rawson. And please cast your vote.
Rodriguez Elkins, aye. Guess so.
All right. Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins, this will go to the mayor, which will send it to the city council next.
I don't have dates.
Don't have dates.
Chair Kramer, but I would anticipate that it would
Sometime in the next,
probably at the second meeting in June.
okay. All right. And they will notify you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Item 9, announcements, presentations, recognition, items of special interest. Do we have any, Mr. Rundle?
Yes, Chair Kramer.
Oh.
I have one.
Holy man, we normally don't. You just surprised me.
Typically-
Wow.
Typically don't. Two things. One, hopefully you all got the email if you're interested.
Mr. Runt, if I may, and we were doing this before when Chair West came over, and it's with the new system. Under section 10, we have
Staff comments.
public comment, staff comments, commissioner comments.
Where?
I don't
Okay.
know why
got it.
why it still comes up as number 9 before that. Yeah,
We're
I think it's
skipping
best
9?
to skip 9.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're skipping 9. Okay, never mind. We don't have 9. Comments. Are we doing public comments first?
Yeah.
Okay, then we will open up our last public comment. Anybody wishing to make public comment may do so at this time. Woo, they all left. I will close public comment because I see no one. All right. Staff comments and announcements. Mr. Rundle.
Thank you. And I was saying we have, hopefully you all received an
Yes.
invitation if you're interested in taking that tour. Additionally, I want to announce that Planner Jonathan Cummins has accepted a position in Illinois as an assistant professor. And so this will be his last planning commission meeting in the city.
Oh, man. Congratulations, Jonathan. Now you're gonna really have to get Ian up to speed on everything, aren't you? Dr. Cummins. Oh, man. All right. Well, congratulations. Which college?
Eureka College, Eureka, Illinois.
Wow. Well,
Congratulations.
congratulations, sir. Wow. Okay. Okay. Well. All right. Anything else, Mr.
That's all,
Rundle?
Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, holy man. Commissioner comments, announcements. I would like to welcome the 2 new commissioners. Welcome aboard. Congratulations. You made it through your first meeting. It was a little rough there for a minute. We don't normally take recesses.
Fire hose.
Yeah. But we made it through this one, so congratulations and welcome aboard. We appreciate you serving.
Just
And
wait till we have a 6-hour hard
you be
burner.
quiet. You be quiet. We don't normally do those
Trigger my
now.
PTSD.
That's right.
okay?
Shelley's gonna go wigging on us if you do that. With that said, if nobody has anything else, congratulations, Commissioner Rawson, and congratulations to you, Commissioner Rodriguez Elkins. We are adjourned, folks.
Thank you.